Hi everyone, welcome to this week's episode of Garth's Garage. This time I thought we'd talk a little bit about the 2000 Bathurst win. My first Bathurst win, first win for Garry Rogers Motorsport. We were championship contenders all year. It was myself battling Mark Scaife at HRT, and we were first and second going into the race. And a couple of things had to happen for me to win the championship. I had to win the race, sharing the car with Jason Bargwanna, and Mark had to finish, I think it was 8th or worse, for me to win the championship. So there wasn't a lot of pressure on us championship-wise going into it, because every time you go to Bathurst, you go there to win. And at that stage, Bathurst was the last race of the championship, so it was all on the line, and it was all to win. So we were just going there to win the race, and whatever happened with Mark and HRT, it was out of our hands. The lead up to the event went really well. The endurance campaign was strong. We finished second at the Queensland 500. It was the Queensland 500 back then. Finished second at that race. Jason had done a great job at that race as well. So we felt as a combination we were really going quite well going into Bathurst. Preparation at Bathurst was well. It was that year in 2000. It was absolutely pouring with rain. I mean, it was just the whole joint was underwater. Qualifying was wet. I did the top 10 shootout. It was raining in the shootout and made a mistake at the chase and went off and drove through all the mud, and I think 4 or 5 other cars did the same thing, but I went the furthest into the mud, so we qualified 10th. It was raining at the start of the race. Bargs started the race and then did a mega first stint, got us from 10th up to about 2nd or 3rd in the first 10 or so laps, and we pretty much stayed at the front for the rest of the day. The track sort of rained and dried out, rained and dried out. It was one of those days where strategy was a nightmare, and there was about 4 or 5 of us battling for the win. Scaife was up there. Glenn Seaton and Neil Crompton were strong in the FTR. It was FTR. Falcon back then. Ourselves in the GRM Commodore. Larry and Russell were amongst it. Tony Longhurst was up there. So we were all battling for the race win. And there was a pretty defining moment at about lap 100 where myself, Neil Crompton and Mark Scaife were all lapping Matt Neal, British touring car driver in the Big Kev Commodore. He was sharing the car with Paul Morris. We were lapping him, and Neil was the first one to get there. And those guys all came together at turn 1, and Neil and Neil Crompton and Matt Neal came together and tore the front off Crompton's Falcon. Scaife was involved and got damage on his front guard. And then we were involved a small amount, got a little bit of damage on the front of our car, but I managed to get past both Crompton and Scaife, and that got us into the lead of the race. And then that started creating dramas for Scaife. He delaminated a tyre went down, and they dropped down to about as far as 15th or 16th in the field at that stage. So with about 30 laps to go, Scaife was 15th or 16th, we were leading the race, and we were starting to think, hey, the double might be on here, we could win the race and also the championship. But it didn't play out that way. Tony Longhurst got himself in front of me with about 15 to go. He was taking a lot of risks through the traffic, and I was prepared to take as many risks at that stage, and then he took one too many risks and got himself caught up with a back marker and tore the front suspension out of his car, and we got back into the lead and brought the car home. So we won that race by about 2.5 seconds over Paul Radicic in the Shell Falcon, and Scaife got himself back into about 6th, I think it was, at the end of the race, and that got him the championship. But at that stage we didn't care. We'd won Bathurst. It was a big deal. I was only 23 at the time, second youngest to ever have won it. To share the win with Garry and Jason Bargwanna, we were all on top of the world. Except I had a real bit of a small problem. There wasn't a lot of celebration going on that night, because back in those days we had the dual exit exhausts, and we had an exhaust right under the driver's seat, and we had to take all the padding out of the seat the way that the seat inserts worked for me. So basically the exhaust burnt my backside, and I got a massive burn on my bum. And I couldn't sit down for like 2 months after the race. It was a really bad burn. I didn't really go out partying too much. It was really painful. So I've got a lifetime reminder on my backside of my first ever Bathurst win. At the time it was pretty painful. To look back now, it's pretty funny. Gary reminds me about it all the time. But it's just a quirky side story to our first Bathurst victory, which is pretty cool. Hope you enjoyed the story. We really enjoyed the race. Valvoline were along for the ride back then, and they're still along for the ride right now. So thanks very much to those guys, and we'll see you again soon.